NCTV45, The Train, anytime on your time.
This program was provided through funding from Cedars Restaurant in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. A special thanks to Cedars, featuring Middle Eastern, Italian, and American cuisine. Yes.
And
hello.
Hi, how are you, Angelo?
I am doing just peachy.
Oh, and I'm actually doing pretty well too. First, I want to welcome all of our viewers to the Cedars Sports Corner. As you all know, I'm Alex Laverson, and with me, as always, is my very intrusive producer, Mr. Angelo Parada.
I'm going to spike the football today.
Yeah, well, I think both of us are pretty happy after a good weekend of football, both pro and college. I'm specifically intrigued about college, and anyone who's been watching this show the past since the beginning of football season knows how pessimistic I have been about Pitt. And now the Pitt Panthers are in first place in the ACC Coastal. Angelo, how did that happen?
When they went to Notre Dame, they went to the grotto, and they prayed.
Mm-hmm.
And they prayed and prayed and prayed, and that's what helped them become just a football team that needs to be reckoned with in the ACC.
Well, what I noticed is that it's like I'm almost more confident in Pitt when they play a team of better quality. So they went up against top 5 Notre Dame, and they didn't win, but they played well.
Top 4 Notre Dame.
Top 4 Notre Dame. And they played well. We always talk about how Pitt's like the most schizophrenic team in college football, but now they've won against Duke and ranked Virginia on the road. Number 25 Virginia they beat on Friday night. So Pitt is 5-4. Very mediocre record. But they're 4-1 in the ACC. Now if you take a look at their out-of-conference schedule, it's like the complete opposite of Penn State. It really is.
There you go.
The record of their out-of-conference opponents is 23-3. So their losses have come to teams that are just head and shoulders better than them. It is what it is. So they lost. Well, I mean, excluding North Carolina, that's just one of those programs. Fedora just has Narduzzi's number, but 3 of those losses came against Notre Dame, ranked, UCF, ranked, Penn State, although, the way they got handled by Michigan, I still think, obviously, they're better than Pitt, but
every squirrel finds an acorn sometime, even blind squirrels.
Mm-hmm.
They wear blue and white.
Yeah, well, you know what?
So, while Pitt's a little nuts, Penn State don't got it.
And you know what, too? I wonder if they were to play again, how different things would be. I mean, well, 51-6, that was a rout.
Well, here's the problem. Penn State has a 6-3 record. And they still have them in 20, 21.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing.
Okay, and here's 8-1 Cincinnati, not getting any respect.
Mm-hmm.
Here's North Carolina State, 6-2, not getting any respect. Okay, so let's go, Nittany Lions, go out and get blown away again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that'll take care of it.
Yeah, listen, and that's what I'm talking about, especially in terms of their out-of-conference schedules. If Pitt actually played a normal out-of-conference schedule, they'd probably be like 7-2. So they would have played. If they played a out-of-conference schedule like Penn State, they'd only have one loss. So yeah, playing a week out-of-conference schedule can be beneficial in some way if you're Penn State. You rack up wins. In another way, it can kind of mask the true talent of a team. Now, obviously, Pitt's not, a top 5 team by any means, obviously. I mean, there's definitely that talent differential. But the 5-4 Panthers, I'm starting to wonder if they're a pretty good 5-4 team, if that makes any sense. Pitt can run the ball really well. It's like they can almost impose their will on the running game. The defense the past few games has been considerably better. And, honestly, can they win the ACC Coastal? They can. Will they? I don't know. They have to...
Well, here's what we have to think about. 6-3 Penn State loses to Wisconsin next Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're 6-4. Rutgers and Maryland, they're at Rutgers. Okay. I'm cheering for the boys in red.
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks in a row, and then they have Maryland at home. The reason they have Maryland is they couldn't handle playing Diane. Okay.
Oh, boy.
Lose 3, and you're 6-6.
And then all of a sudden, Penn State goes from possibly being, a Final Four team to now they're technically just bowl eligible. Man, that really calls into question James Franklin. And the thing with college football is that it's
Franklin
all momentum.
needs to get on with his life's work. Now, the Pitt Panthers are at home against Virginia Tech.
And they
If they stop Virginia Tech and beat Wake Forest at Wake Forest. Now, I'm not saying Wake Forest, but Wake Forest is 1-4 in the conference, 4-5. They should beat the Demon Deep.
And they lost their starting quarterback. But again, we know how Pitt is. They will play to the level of their competition. Kind of reminds me of the Steelers. So I could see them losing to...
No. The game that shapes it for Pitt is when they have to go to Miami.
Well, you know what, Andrew? The game against Miami might actually be, in a way, meaningless. If Pitt wins, if I'm correct, if Pitt wins against Virginia Tech and Wake Forest, I think that's it. I think they're ACC Coastal champions, and they go to the ACC title game. Maybe I'm wrong.
Clemson.
Pitt beat Clemson a few years ago.
I know, and I'm not saying that.
And I'm not saying I think they would win against Clemson, But I'm saying, it's... Narduzzi actually has a better record against ranked teams at this point in year 4 than other previous Pitt coaches since 2000.
What you're saying is win the 2 and the Miami game doesn't matter, don't show anything, and go play Clemson.
Well, I still,
Who are they going to get in a bowl?
I think, if I'm correct, they're projected... If they weren't, let's say if Pitt wasn't going to go to the ACC title game or, FCS Bowl, a lot of projections have them going up against Stanford. I think it might have been the Sun Bowl, if I'm correct. Listen, again, just a bowl game in a winning season would be really good for Pitt. But imagine if they can win the ACC Coastal.
Now, here's my question. I got 2 questions. Now, I'm not going to try and throw you off.
Okay.
But how about those Duquesne Dukes?
You can fill us in.
47-30 over Wagner, and Duquesne football looking like, well, maybe we have to start to take a look at playing Pitt as an opening game.
Again, what do I?
Because the Dukes, okay, with 2 games left, could possibly make the playoffs if they're not going to count the loss to Division I Hawaii and UMass, who's okay. Duquesne wins the title. I mean, Sacred Heart. That's going to be on ESPN next weekend.
Yeah, you know, I would welcome an intercede. We better go to a break because we got some people barging in right now who are just so furious with my opinions on Pitt right now. But let's go take a break, and now a word from our sponsors.
This program furnished by the MAD Unit, Mobile Auto Detailing. See Michael Sad at themadunit.com.
Holy snowman, it's the Turf Bar, home of great sandwiches, appetizers, tacos, you name it, they have it at the Turf Bar. It's just the right food. You'll enjoy those special drinks. They're there too. And get that nice cold beverage, relax, enjoy the Turf Bar. If you ain't there, you should be. Hello, friends. Pinella Brothers, 1701 Hamilton Street, provided funding for this program. Great food and drink, Pinella Brothers.
Welcome back to the Cedars Sports Corner, everybody. I want to continue talking about college football here. And
he's so happy that Pitt's winning that he just can't control himself.
Well, you know, I'm also intrigued by James Franklin because it was just that even myself was saying, you know, how good he was doing on the recruiting trail.
Frankly speaking, who has been on this show, and the Penn Staters that really don't like me, I've told them that Penn State is not in the league with Michigan, Notre Dame's, Alabama's. Penn State is not a perennial power. Penn State is a perennial cupcake eater.
Would you like some stats to support your opinion? James Franklin is now 3-12 against Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State. He's 1-4 against Urban Meyer, 1-4 against D'Antonio from Michigan State, and 1-3 against Michigan's John Harbaugh. He's also 0-1 against Brady Hoke. And their combined record for out-of-conference foes from FBS schools is 13-3. Compare that to Pitt's 23-3 combined record of their out-of-conference foes. Man, that really supports everything. I would say both you and I have been saying on the show for a while now about their scheduling. And when does James Franklin start to be mentioned for the hot seat at Penn State? It's what, year 5 now?
It should be now.
Mm-hmm.
It should be now. They're not that good of a football team.
And I always think you have to be trending upwards. Is James Franklin and Penn State trending upwards?
Well, they're down 7 in the trend. They're down 7. So
yeah, well,
trending down.
With college football, it's all about what have you done for me lately. You could be on the hot seat 1 minute in the season, and then next minute in the season, you could be getting a contract extension. You know, look at Pat Narduzzi. Everyone was ready to run him out of town in Pittsburgh. Now they're first place in the ACC Coastal, and everyone's back to saying he's a good coach. You know, it's always just tentative. Everything is always tentative in college football.
Enough talking about the other guys, and let's talk about the good guys.
Mm-hmm.
The boys at Notre Dame taking on Florida State this weekend. NBC 7:30.
Is it a trap game?
No, I think the game to watch is Syracuse, the 2:30 start. with number 19 Syracuse.
You know, it's crazy because they're ranked number 13 in the country, but if anyone who watched Pitt play Syracuse this year and Pitt win, like, you wouldn't think they're a number 13 school. Especially, I don't really see any quality wins on Syracuse's schedule either. Maybe NC State, but again, if Syracuse, when you only lost 2 games this year, you're going to be a decent opponent for the Irish. And another ACC team that's kind of coming back to, I don't know if I want to say prevalence, because it's not like Boston College has always been like such a prevalent school, but Boston College is now doing well. I think they're, 6-2. I think Notre Dame should be able to beat Syracuse just fine. Again, you never know, because sometimes teams start out slow, there's injuries.
How about Florida State? Don't overlook.
No, you can't ever look. Well, first of all, you can't ever overlook a school, period. Any championship caliber coach in college football knows to take it one game at a time. And
Notre Dame runs the table.
How confident are you in that?
And my question is, Notre Dame runs the table. And Alabama loses in the game to Georgia.
Hopefully, I'm so sick of Alabama.
So now you've got, and let's do this. Notre Dame runs the table. Alabama loses to Georgia. Clemson beats Pitt, or Pitt beats Clemson. Notre Dame's number 1. Who do you let back in? Do you say, Georgia, you're in. Michigan, you're in. And do you drop Alabama below Oklahoma and Ohio State? And do you let West Virginia in for winning their conference?
Man, a lot has to happen for the scenario you just said.
Only 2 things. Alabama and Clemson both lose.
Well, I mean, do you really see Alabama losing? They're just like on another planet. They're like a semi-pro team. I mean, I think we're going to see Alabama and Notre Dame again like we did in 2012. I think that's what's going to happen. I'm praying to God Notre Dame would beat Alabama. But, I just said you can't ever look a game in college football.
Listen to this. Mississippi State, the Citadel, Auburn, and Georgia. Now, if there were ever some teams that I'm really rooting for, it would be the Tigers and the Bulldogs. Because a loss to those 2 would send shockwaves through everything else. I'm just saying, hey, but I'm also saying that I hear sponsors calling.
Yeah, I think our sponsors are calling, and I think they also might want to talk some pro football in our last segment. But let's answer the call from our sponsors, and we'll be right back after this break.
Today's programming is brought to you by NCTV45 and NC Radio 450. Newcastle's community television station. This program furnished by Sporting Goods, 23 East Washington Street, Newcastle. Call 724-658-2535. These fine businesses provided funding for this program. Gatherings, Town and Country, and On Target.
Welcome back to our third and final segment here on the Cedars Sports Corner. And
wait, I have a question.
Okay.
Here is my question, if you don't mind. I'm wondering if in the AFC there's any other team or teams besides the Patriots and the Steelers.
Maybe the Chiefs.
I mean, the only time the Steelers come up last in the AFC Central is when they list them in alphabetical order.
The North. Be the North.
North.
Yeah, I know. You're stuck in the 90s.
It's the same. It's the same deal.
Excluding the Jaguars and the Oilers. I know what you're saying. And, you know, Angelo, speaking of the Steelers, this is a very... I'm not going to say surprising stat, but a very awesome telling stat for Pittsburgh's running back, not Le'Veon Bell, James Conner. James Conner is the first player in NFL history with 4 games within a single season of 100 rushing yards, 50 receiving yards, and a touchdown. He's the first player ever in NFL history. The Steelers are better with James Conner as their starting running back than they would be if you're having a bitter, rusty Le'Veon Bell come in. And Le'Veon Bell, he's missed a few games before in previous season, whether it's injury or suspension or whatever, and he comes back rusty. You're missing training camp. He starts out slow. After missing, how many games so far? 9 games? Imagine how he would be. I don't want them...
How great position I'm in with respect to this. The Falcons travel to play the Browns in Cleveland at 1 o'clock. The Browns win. Then they go at the Bengals. The Bengals are hapless. They couldn't fight themselves out of a paper bag, and the Brownies win down in Cincinnati. Now that's 2 wins to 2 6-1 teams, so now they're 4-6. They lose to the Texans. That's 4-7. They beat the Panthers at home. That's 5-7. They beat the Broncos, who don't have a clue, on the road. That's 6-7. They beat the Bengals at home. That's 7-7. And then they take on the Ravens, who we already know what the Ravens are like. And the Brownies finish 8-7. Okay?
I mean, maybe.
And Pittsburgh is in first place. And the Browns make the playoffs.
Man, I don't know if I'm going to go that far. Usually you say I'm the Cleveland fan. Jeez, oh man.
I'm being realistic. I'm telling you what
Well, listen, Hugh Jack... Man, I still don't know how I feel about them getting rid of Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley. Technically, this was their most successful season in the last, 3 years after Hugh Jackson goes, 1-31. Then he wasn't good enough to fire, but then he wins a couple games and ties for another. Now we could fire him, so I don't know. I mean...
And do you realize what that says? Because the Dolphins and the Jets are going to struggle amongst themselves, while the only 2 with winning records, I mean, the Patriots are 7-2, and because of the bye week, and the Steelers are 5-2-1.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
who's after them?
The Bungles.
And their record is
5-3. So, Pittsburgh, for Cleveland, the future starts now. Okay, 3-6 for the Broncos. Look at who they're playing. Okay, so this is a definite possibility for the Brownies, and they don't have to play the big bad Steelers anymore.
Well,
okay. And if they just think about it, they have an excellent shot. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, somebody's going to have to beat the Patriots. If that happens, Pittsburgh gets home field. 5-2-1. The 2-1 will beat a 3-0 in the loss and tie column. Bang. Just telling you again.
You heard it here first. One other interesting stat from the Steeler game. Ben Roethlisberger during that game had a pass touchdown, a rush touchdown, and he also punted for the Steelers in that game. The last player to do that, to do all three of those things in a game, was John Elway in 1989 against the Steelers. So, that game really set some interesting stats. And, I'm still not as confident as you are in the Browns that they're going to turn it around. The Bengals, okay, yeah, they're 5-3. Yeah, they could probably find their way into the playoffs.
Bengals.
They're 5-3.
But they can't find their way past the Browns. That's what I'm telling you.
Well, I'm just saying right now, as an outlook, if the season were to end now, they'd be in.
And your mother had.
Whoa. Talk about my mother.
Football should be a football player.
I don't know. I mean, you always say I'm the Cleveland guy, but I don't know.
I'm just being realistic. Do you think that quarterback up in Cleveland is going to take them down a losing path or a winning path?
It's not necessarily just going to be Baker Mayfield. I mean,
all Baker has to do is win one game.
Well, what was Baker's stats yesterday? I think it was pretty decent. I mean, it wasn't like terrible. I think he had a couple touchdowns, if I'm correct. If you could pull that up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm saying like even Baker Mayfield could have a great game. Baker Mayfield could have a great game, but still.
Let's look at Cincinnati. Okay, who does Cincinnati have left? They have to play the Saints. Are they going to lose?
Good.
Okay. They have to play the Ravens at the Ravens. Could they lose?
Of course they could lose. They also could win.
Okay. Well, the Ravens are going to be under so much heat because they've already lost.
Yeah, but man,
Okay.
you act like the
Then
Bengals
they
have never
gotta
beaten the
play
Ravens.
Browns.
Yeah, like what makes you think they can't beat the Browns? They're the Browns.
But Baker Mayfield has changed the attitude on this team. They got the Browns, the Bengals, the Chargers, and the Raiders. And then the Browns again. I say they're not getting out of there alive.
I hope they don't. Listen, I hope you're right and I hope I'm wrong because Cincinnati is my least favorite team, even over Baltimore. I can't stand Cincinnati. But I don't know. I'm not even a Cleveland Brown fan, and I feel pessimistic for them. But anyway, I think that pretty much covers it. For our last words, I just want to give a shout-out to Penn State Shenango men's basketball team. The program has returned, and the other day they beat Akron Wayne. And Penn State Shenango, that's where I got my bachelor's degree from, and that's the only sports team we have down there. So I'm even though I'm very critical of the Penn State main campus football team, I'm really optimistic about Penn State Shenango and their basketball program. Hey, who knows? Maybe they'll end up playing Duquesne or Robert Morris, right?
I would like that. Give a shout out to the Dukes are on their way up.
Mm-hmm.
Duquesne basketball, they're taking on William and Mary. So they're playing two people at the same time, William and Mary. Okay, they get a win there at 5 o'clock Saturday. The football team gets a win. The Dukes are looking good, and they will be traveling to South Bend to take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish 2 games before they play Pitt in the city game. So, a lot of big things happen.
Big things happening, and I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot of, well, me more than you talk a lot of Pitt basketball. But that wraps up our show, and I hope all of you have a happy and safe week.
A special thanks to the YMCA for caring about the Lawrence County community and providing funding for this program.